everyone, welcome to Christina Cakes It. I'm Christina and today I'm making an island jelly cake. Today I'm taking on another cake trend and the island jelly cakes really took off and I think they are so cool looking, and I knew that I wanted to do one for my channel, and I also knew that I really wanted to make a tutorial that was really straightforward and easy that anybody could follow. So when making an island jelly cake, it kind of breaks down into 3 parts. So I think of it as the first part of the carving and getting the cake ready. Then the second part is the gelatin, and then the third part is the final decorating. Island jelly cakes do take a bit of time to come together, and you want to make sure that you are prepared. And the very first thing is obviously to have your cakes, and you are going to want to make a chocolate cake because that's going to give the island color that we're looking for. And I am using 3 6-inch layers, and there is a layer of ganache between each of these layers. The other key is that I have this on cheesecake springform pan, like the bottom of it. So this is a 6-inch cake and this is a 7-inch springform pan. So you have to have a pan around it that is larger than the cake you're using, otherwise it's going to not give you that really cool water effect that we're looking for. You could alternatively do 8-inch cakes with a 9-inch springform pan. This springform pan, actually, I got it because it fits in an Instapot and I never have used it. So today it came in handy. So the first thing to do is start carving away the cake layers, and you are gonna wanna save all of your scraps. So I actually have the scraps here from when I leveled the cake, because we're gonna use those to mold our little island mountainy things. I don't know what they're called. Like thinking back to 6th grade science, I can't remember. All right, so I'm gonna start just kind of carving away. I don't really think there's a right way or a wrong way to do this. We're just creating a shape that we like. So next I'm gonna take all these cake scraps that I saved and I'm gonna mix them with a little bit of ganache just so it'll stick together. And this is essentially cake pop mix. So we're just mixing the cake with the ganache because we're gonna use it to mold. So these tops are going to stick out of the water. So I'm trying to envision what that will look like. So now I kind of have this really abstract underwater mountainy looking thing here, and I'm pretty happy with the shape. I'm trying to think of, envision what it'll look like when it has the jelly water surrounding it. And the next step is very important. We have to cover this entire structure in chocolate ganache. And the reason that we need to cover this with ganache is because we want this cake completely sealed off from any of the gelatin getting into the actual cake. And so the ganache I'm using is just a basic ganache recipe. It's 1.5 cups of semi-sweet chocolate chips to 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. And this should be enough to not only fill the cake layers, but also cover this whole thing. So I'm just going to start covering this. And what's gonna happen is it's gonna harden completely and act as a sealant so that that Jell-O doesn't get into here. So now I've covered my little mountain with a ton of ganache, and that actually took longer and was harder than I thought it was gonna be because you don't wanna miss any spots because you don't want the Jell-O to ruin your cake. So the next thing to do is add a little bit of white to this. I'm actually using white candy melts because that's just what I had. You could use white chocolate ganache, or I've seen people also paint with white gel food coloring. which was what I was going to do, and then I think I threw it away in the middle of moving, so I actually ordered more, and the candy melts came in handy. So I'm just going to start painting a little bit of white randomly on the mountain, and what this is going to do is it's going to give like a really cool look from like under the water. So it's kind of going to add like some ridges and depth to the eye. So this masterpiece needs to go into the fridge so this ganache can harden for at least 30 minutes, but it can go in longer. So I'm gonna put this in the fridge, and while this is hardening, I'm going to work on preparing the gelatin. So for the gelatin portion, there are a few different amounts that are very important, and I have my notes because I knew I would forget if I tried to remember. So in front of me, I have 1.5 cups of cool water, and I have 120 grams of unflavored gelatin. And this is a lot of gelatin. So I wanted to show you, I bought this huge thing on Amazon. So you can expect there will be more gelatin recipes in the future of my channel because this thing is like ginormous and I have a ton left over. And I did weigh this, and what it comes out to be is about 2/3 cup plus 3 tablespoons of gelatin. And the first thing I'm gonna do is just add this to my cool water. And we're gonna let this bloom, they call it, for about 3 minutes, like 3 to 5 minutes before stirring. And while that is blooming, I have 2.5 cups of water, and I'm going to boil this with 150 grams of sugar, and that comes out to be 1/2 cup plus 2 tablespoons of sugar. So I'm gonna bring this to a boil, and everything is gonna need to dissolve. So my sugar water is clearly boiling, and I'm going to add this to my bloomed gelatin, which I did mix after about 5 minutes. So I'm just gonna stir this together until all the little gelatin clumps are dissolved. And a common question is, what does this taste like? And it's actually pretty flavorless. There are other recipes out there that'll give you some flavor, like you can add 7-Up for the water to give like a slight flavor. But this cake is actually gonna be relatively tasteless, and you can eat it, but it's more for looks. So the next thing I'm gonna do is color my water. And I'm using Wilton in Teal, like a gel color. And I'm just taking a toothpick. And I'm gonna start by adding very little. You do not want your water too dark, otherwise it's going to interfere with seeing the island structure beneath the water. So definitely start with just a dab, because you can always add more. So this is the shade that I'm after, like this really pretty tropical teal water. And what I need to do now is I need this to come to room temperature. You cannot pour this over chocolate ganache or it's going to melt it because it's too hot. So we need this to come down to at least 90 degrees. So right now it's about 122 degrees, and I need it to come down to at least 90, if not more. So I'm gonna let this cool off and work on the next step. As my gelatin mixture is coming to room temperature, I'm going to work on preparing my pan, because we have to make sure everything is really tight and sealed in there. So this was in the fridge for honestly probably a good hour or so, so it has hardened, which we want. And I'm going to attach the little spring form around it. Wow, that took me a minute to get there. So we do not want any leakage here. So I'm gonna put some saran wrap around the bottom and tape that up. We're gonna do a couple layers. I am not playing around. I'm actually using packing tape and I'm taping the saran wrap to the side. So this is all sealed in here. And next I have an acetate sheet. And I'm gonna put this into the pan around my cake. So my pan is ready to go, and as soon as the gelatin is ready, I'm gonna start pouring it in. So my gelatin has finally cooled to room temperature, and I'm going to carefully add it to the cake. So the next part of this cake requires some patience. We are gonna let this set in the fridge overnight, and I will be back tomorrow to take this all off and reveal the beauty that is underneath. My cake has been taking a nap in the refrigerator this whole time, and the gelatin has definitely set, and it's ready to come out of all of this like packaging or whatever you want to call it. So I'm just going to start cutting all of this away and let this cake out. As you can see, it worked, and we have our island cake. I can see the island underneath this really pretty teal water. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to finish decorating the top of the islands, like the little mountain pieces. So to begin, I'm just going to take a little bit of gel black food coloring, and I'm going to paint the little mountains here. They're kind of brown right now. I want to add some depth with a little bit of black. So the black is just gonna give it a little bit more of a realistic look. There's no like right or wrong way to do this. And the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add, I don't know what to call it, I was calling it like island moss. That's not the real name, but essentially I'm gonna add a little bit of green here. And what this is crushed up graham cracker that I just like crushed up with a rolling pin and in a bag to get really crummy. And then I just dyed it using 2 different shades of gel food coloring. And I'm just gonna apply it to the top of the island, to the little island pieces. So actually, before I do that, very important, I'm very glad that I remember this. Otherwise, I would have kind of ruined this water. You wanna protect your water with saran wrap, otherwise the crumbs are gonna make it like cloudy, which I do not want that to happen. This cake uses a lot of saran wrap. That's the moral of the story. So now I'm going to add my little green, and I'm gonna start with the darkest green at the top here. Oh yes, we are definitely making a mess. This cake is also messier than I thought it was gonna be. And I'm gonna move on to my lighter. And the lighter, I'm gonna attempt to get it like a little bit lower. And then lastly, this is just plain graham cracker that I didn't dye. I'm Just add these crumbs along the bottom. And now I'm gonna remove the saran wrap carefully. Oh my goodness, it's starting to look so good. And then the very last thing to do is just take a little bit of white. Again, I'm using candy melts. You can use white gel food coloring or white chocolate ganache. And I'm gonna carefully just use a paintbrush to paint this along the edge, kind of like a little, like crashing wave. So my simple island jelly cake is done, and I'm a little bit obsessed with it. I think it turned out so well. And I hope you guys enjoyed watching this process and you enjoyed this tutorial. And I also hope this cake makes you want to go on vacation, because it makes me want to go on vacation. And if you did like this episode, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel.